Hi, welcome to Astrology for Gain Traders. My name is Olga Morales, and this is a follow-up video to my previous one on the eclipse season and Mars out of bounds, where I alerted you about the next 2 months of August and September. I also highlighted the 23rd, 24th, depending on the hemisphere you live in, regarding the Mars-Saturn conjunction that would be squaring the eclipse degree. And as we know, we've witnessed that there have been 3 +6 magnitude earthquakes on that exact day, that being one in Indonesia, the other one in central Italy, and another one in Burma. If you also recall from my video, I mentioned the 19-year Metonic Cycle, and if we look back at 1997, I mentioned the death of Princess Diana, which she died actually one day before the solar eclipse. This is the same one we're having coming up in a couple of days on the 1st of September. And it's exactly at the same degree. That's what the Metonic Cycle is about. The sun and the moon come back to the same degree in the zodiac on the same day. So it was very much used for calendars, lunar calendars. Okay, so and the other amazing thing with this timing is that in 1997 there was also another devastating earthquake in central Italy, in Umbria, pretty much the same region where they've had one a few days ago. So it's one of the, in terms of seeing cycles, especially in mundane events, because the sun and the moon are actually quite involved when it comes to weather patterns and anything to do with the Earth. I mean, if you imagine, if you're looking at this slide now, this is actually the lunar eclipse that will be on the 16th or the 17th September, depending where you live. You can see that the moon's on one side and the sun's on the other side, and really it's the Earth in the middle. It's like a bit of a tug of war. They're pulling. But you can also see the other planets forming hard aspects to these, to the sun and the moon. And so there's a lot of tugging on the Earth. And that's how you have to visualize it. And so if there's little fractures in our Earth, which is we know as the tectonic plates, the ring of fire, when these planets pulling, you can see that those fractures start to erupt or pull apart and things happen. So that's why out of the cycles that actually WD talks about, he had a financial timetable which is based on the 18-19 year cycle, and you can see why. Okay, so let's get started. Just to highlight, if you haven't watched my previous video, I recommend you do. This is called planetary declination if you're new to astrology, and planets go north and south of the equator in their travelling, and when that happens, sometimes they go beyond the extreme, like the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, and that's called out of bounds. And as I pointed out, Mars is going to be out of bounds from the 8th of August, and he will be out of bounds all of September, and then eventually will return, still quite low in the southern declination at the end of October. And at the same time, I highlighted this is happening when there are 3 eclipses, so it's very unstable. And you can see last time Mars was out of bounds on the south declination was in 2001 when we had 9/11, and then halfway when it was maximum north declination was 2007, 2008, 92 and 93. So there's important pivots in the financial markets as well. So anytime any planet is out of bounds, it basically has no limits. So Mars will continue to play havoc. It has a 15-year cycle. As I just pointed out, last time was in 2001. And when a celestial body is out of bounds, its energy becomes abnormal and unpredictable. The energy is unleashed without limitations, and with Mars, the energy can take on aggression, war, like temperament, and hot as hell. Now there's been quite a few fires happening around. Now the 15-year cycle is GAN's 180 months, so in 15 years Saturn travels 180 degrees or half its cycle. So when the 9/11 attacks happened, Saturn was actually at 14 degrees of Gemini 45. In 2016, Saturn is transiting opposite the sign, in Sagittarius. This year it will also conjoin Mars on the 24th of August, aligned with the fixed star Antares, the heart of the Scorpion. 15 years equals 180 months. To add to the drama, this year there will be a lunar eclipse on the 18th of August, solar eclipse on the 1st of September, and another lunar eclipse on the 16th of September. Mars will be out of bounds all this time. I'm just recapping if you haven't watched my previous video. This is a chart I had for the exact time Mars was conjunct Saturn on the 24th of September. And you can see the global hotspots that I pointed out. Now the Mars and Saturn were on the MC through Indonesia and Burma, so that's where we had two earthquakes happening. At the same time, the actual Sun at the time was going through Italy and also the North Node and Neptune. They were basically, the midpoint was going over Italy at the time. The other thing I sort of pointed out was this Mars-Saturn going through Peru, Colombia, Miami and Washington DC. At the moment there's I've just seen that there's a hurricane developing in this region. So with this sort of energy, it's not just, eclipses don't just give us earthquakes, but they do give us a lot of what we would term natural disasters. Another one here is the MC over Los Angeles and San Francisco is Uranus, which is a planet of sudden changes and disruptions. Okay, and also to its opposite is going on the IC through Iran. Now let's have a look. So obviously this is what's been happening. On that exact day we had 3 earthquakes in Indonesia, central Italy and in Burma. Same day, all highlighted on this map. Now this is what's happening now. Apparently Florida, Bahamas and Cuba, as the tropical disturbances may wait to strengthen, so there's this developing in that area. And even Australia is shaking. In the last there were 35 quakes in just over 24 hours. This was reported on the 22nd of August. Then in just over the last 12 months there have been 7. Okay, that's an average in just over 24 years of approximately 1.4 per year. And in the last 12 months there have been 7 over magnitude 5. Now we had actually an earthquake in Queensland, a magnitude of 5.8, exactly on the 18th of August, which was the last lunar eclipse. Okay, everyone's saying that wasn't really a lunar eclipse, but astrologically it still was, because it was the last eclipse of one of the Saros cycles, or 129. So it was tiny, couldn't see it, didn't cast any shadow, but it was the end of a cycle, and we still had that earthquake in Australia. So the Metonic Cycle every 19 years. So in 1997, I put this in the video, what was happening to us, think back 19 years ago. These were the other earthquakes in 1997. Mexico, Bolivia, Pakistan, the Philippine Islands, Santa Cruz Islands, Windward Islands, northern Iran, Afghanistan, southern India, Venezuela, South Fiji Islands, central Italy, that's the one that's just happened again, southern Greece, central Chile, northern Peru and Vanuatu. It doesn't mean that they have to recur again. I'm just highlighting them. That's how I do my research. So WD tells you to look back. You need to look at what was happening, what if you can see these places being highlighted by the eclipses or not. So let's have a look at the rest of September just to highlight. So we've got a lunar eclipse on the 1st. We've got Saturn square Neptune on the 10th, which is very important, and we've got another lunar eclipse on the 17th or the 16th. I've cast this for Australian Eastern Standard Time for where I live, so that might be a little bit different to where you are. Okay, so let's have a look at the 2 Metonic cycles 38 years ago. 38 years ago, the lunar eclipse was on the 17th of September 1978, and this is cast for Melbourne again, and again this year for us in Melbourne it's going to be on the 17th of September 2016. Look at the dates. It's the same day, but a different day of the week. Sunday, Saturday, but they're almost exactly the same time. It's like 4 minutes out. So that means the whole chart, the two charts look almost exactly the same. The angles are the same. So this is what is so exciting about this cycle. Let's have a look at the lunar eclipse that happened on the 16th of September 1978. This is what that looks like on the world map. Okay, and these are the areas where there were earthquakes. Japan, Turkey. So Japan, you can see there's two planets going right over Japan. Turkey, the same. Turkey's in here. You can see there's a crossing over, and also in this thing, there's a lot of planets happening in there. Southern Italy. Italy is fixed in there like a crossover of two planets. Germany is also in here. So there's quite a bit happening in Europe there. The Kuril Islands, I think that's how you say it, I believe near Japan, in here, right under the Neptune line. Taiwan is in this part, basically the Pluto and Mars at the time going through that area. Solomon Islands would be out here near Australia. And Chile, we can see Chile, again there's a Mars Pluto going through Chile. Costa Rica is in just here, there's basically Pluto going through Costa Rica. Southern California, yes, we've got Saturn and Mercury going through there, right on the IC. And Iran, again, we've got Neptune declining over, and Saturn and Mercury on the IC. Okay, so believe it or not, on the 16th of September 1978, there was a huge 7.4 earthquake in Iran on that day of the eclipse. It actually happened just before. And you can see the degree that's on the midheaven, 24 of Sagittarius, but you can actually see the time of the earthquake. The eclipse was just about to be exact. You can see that the moon's 20 degrees of Pisces and the sun's at 23. There's only another 3 degrees to be exact eclipse, okay, but at the same time you can see it was square the MC of the location, and also we can see some other patterns in there. Okay, so the actual total lunar eclipse, when I relocated it to Iran, you can see that at the time Saturn was right on the IC of that location. Okay, so usually that has to be some sort of a planet, an outer planet, on one of the angles to give you an indication of location for things to happen, not just the eclipse. So the amazing thing, the earthquake was 5 hours before the lunar eclipse, but you can have a look at the, I don't know, I just, when I see these synchronicities, I'm amazed. You can see that in 1978 the MC for the eclipse was at 24 of Sagittarius, when the actual that was the actual earthquake happening, but the actual eclipse had that degree on the descendant. So that's a bit spooky, I believe. Now, what happens this year on the 16th of September? This is actually plotted for London, or Greenwich actually. You can see Pluto's on the MC. So it's a little bit out, so this will be also in Europe. Because it's, there's about 3 degrees, almost 4 degrees there. So Pluto can mean quite dramatic change in that area. But also we've got the planet of sudden events happening, rising over Britain and a bit of Europe. There's also an opposition to Venus. So we've got quite a few hard angles. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out, why this eclipse will be significant once again, is because Mars is at 23 of Sagittarius. It's only 1 degree away from forming an exact T-square. Okay, so the effects of that may be on the 18th of September when Mars becomes exactly square the eclipse point. Have a look at that degree. I'm not going to say anything right now, but it's very close to what we've been looking at. Okay, so the lunar eclipse plotted for this year on 2016, you can see again similar formations to the one that I showed previously. So we've got Mars going through like just off the coast of there, so that's in Atlantic. I was just trying to think of the ocean, Atlantic Ocean. Okay, going through. Now we've got a lot of sort of energy going on the top of Ireland and London. We've got the Venus-Uranus opposition. They're basically going to be on the angles going through London. Pluto's looks like it's sort of near Paris, Algeria, Nigeria, so going in that meridian there. Then we have the Mars-Saturn going through the Middle East, okay, and Uranus again highlighted. And then we've got more in this area here, more the Middle East, India as well, right near Delhi. Okay, again, we've got the Venus-Uranus opposition going through Indonesia, Taiwan, China, in that area there. Even Melbourne gets a bit of a... Saturn's very close to our IC, and Mars is off the coast of the east coast, so and all the way up to through Tokyo. Okay, so we might get another earthquake and extreme weather again. There's been a lot of water and storms around the east coast. I think New Zealand's might feel something as well, and the islands all around. You can see the clustering. This gives us a signal of where things may happen. And then when we go over to America, we can see that the Mars, Saturn-Mars is actually rising over this whole area of the States. And we can see that Neptune's going right through on the IC through Los Angeles and San Francisco going into Canada. And also we've got the Venus-Uranus going through Miami again, so Florida, that area there in the Caribbean. And again, Saturn goes on the coast over here, Atlantic Ocean. So they're similar, very similar locations to 38 years ago. So let's have a look. I just plotted the eclipse for San Francisco just to have a look, and you can see how it's on the IC. Now the IC, remembering from our other video, basically is the point of the land and the people, and a lot of weather and things that happen to the Earth are symbolic of any planet that is on that angle. So Neptune in Pisces is water related. It's very destabilizing, can bring more flooding or rain in that area. And opposite, now it's also highlighted that the stellium up here is in the MC of that area. So you can see how that is in the spotlight once again. And we can see that Saturn is square, the nodes, and Neptune. Remember I said Saturn was going to form a square to Neptune on the 10th, so they're still forming a square at the moment in here. And then Mars is forming a square to the eclipses, that's a T-square. So the squares and oppositions are what often make these eclipses more intense. Not all eclipses look like this. They don't have all this hard energy. Now, what I pointed out also about the moon wobble periods is not, I want to point out that any eclipse, according to Payne, was to do with the time and space are unstable. And it's not just earthquakes, it's natural disasters, floods, bizarre weather patterns, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions and tornadoes, plane crashes, boat, train or car accidents, explosions, fires, riots and mass murder, increased accidents and violence, political and personal upheaval. So everything tends to go a bit haywire because of the disturbance to the electromagnetic fields. That's basically what is happening. So if you think of the planets like little magnets, and they're all sort of forming hard aspects and they're interfering with the electromagnetic field of our Earth, that's what's playing out. So I wanted to have a look what the eclipse would look like if I relocated it to Iran again, to the same place where it was 38 years ago. And amazingly, we've got Neptune right on the MC. Do you remember where Neptune was for San Francisco? Was right on the IC. Now, Iran and San Francisco are like polar opposites. Okay, so it's interesting to see that. Now this degree keeps coming up. Mars is actually going to be on the descendant. Okay, so this is really significant. I can't stress it any more than that. So have a look at 30 years apart. This is for Iran. You can see Mars in this year on the 16th will be, as I just pointed out, on the descendant. And the actual the time of the lunar eclipse that happened in 1978, that same degree, almost, it's only 2 degrees apart, was on the descendant as well. You can see that the angles are almost exact. There's only 2 degrees. And yes, that's a San Francisco, just to show you how there's sort of like flipped charts. The intensity of this chart, as I just said, the more we have in terms of hard aspects, the more intense they are. Now, this is a 90-degree dial if you've never seen one before. And what it does, it visually shows you the intensity of the planets, because basically anytime you see planets come together on this dial, they either have to be conjunct, square, or opposite. So that's the 4th harmonic. Anything across the dial on this side, it has to be either 45 or 135 degrees away, which is the 8th harmonic. Now, it is believed with the cosmobiology is that most things occur when there are hard aspects. It's just the intensity of them create more crises, I suppose, and more conflicts and more challenges. So you can see this lunar eclipse. Not only does the lunar eclipse have Mars there, it also has the nodes Saturn and Neptune, because they're forming a square. And at the same time, Venus is forming an opposition to Uranus. But these are also connected across the dial. So in terms of symmetry, it's very intense. Okay, I thought I'd just quickly look at the Hillary Clinton's chart and how the eclipse is going to affect her. At the moment, she's having, you can see now, her chart's not, we don't have an accurate birth time for her. I'm using the 8:02 a.m. chart, which gives her a Scorpio rising, and so I can't rely necessarily on the house placements for this, but I can still sort of speak about the planets in her natal chart. So she's got her Mercury at the moment, which is, her Mercury is at 21 of Scorpio, is actually forming, Uranus is actually forming an inconjunct or a quincunx to that 150 degrees, which is known as the health aspect, because it's like the symbolic 6th house. Okay, so now Mercury rules the communication, the mind, the nervous system, and Uranus can make that really unstable, erratic, and nervousness can happen. So, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about her health issues, and I think that's what she's suffering at the moment is indicative of that. So let's have a look at just what I've done here. I've put it on the 90-degree dial because I would like to think that, this, if this time was correct for her, this eclipse is actually would be triggering her own lunar position, but we're not quite sure of the exact time, if she's still, what degree her moon would be in, if it would still be in Pisces or not. But anyway, I can look at other things, and the fact that this eclipse degree in Mars is actually coming to some midpoints in her chart, her Sun, her Mars, Pluto, Venus. So that's all the positions in Leo, and her Sun in Scorpio. She's got a lot of fixed, hard to move. But the thing is, everything at the moment is immutable, so it's very destabilizing for her. because she can't actually control things. And the thing is, this eclipse is going to, in a way, really take a toll on her being able to control the masses, her authority, because it's coming to Mars. See, the Mars, Sun, Pluto, it's all about the fighter. Fighting for your life, basically. But it's destabilizing it. Mars is there. It creates very challenges and also disruptions to that. Okay. And what I've highlighted here too is that this her Mercury-Saturn node is actually the same point with the Uranus transiting at the moment, so that's destabilizing. And also what I wanted to show is that on the 10th of September we've got that Neptune square Saturn, and that comes to her, and across the dial within a degree we've got Uranus. Okay, so the Mercury-Uranus midpoint in the body is basically about the spinal cord, disturbances of equilibrium, facial pains and migraines and nervousness and insomnia. So there's a lot to do with the nervous system in that respect. So this is a health issue. Neptune, Saturn is known as the depression sickness combination, according to Eberton. And that's actually affecting her nervous system quite dramatically. So at the moment she's going through astrologically very difficult transits. I wanted to look at Donald Trump as well, because he's just pretty much having very difficult ones as well. Now, he was actually born on the day of an eclipse. You can see it. You can see the sun opposite the moon next to the nodes. So this is a total eclipse because it's so close. And believe it or not, this eclipse that's coming up, which will go now, he's got a properly timed chart, and we can see that this eclipse on the 16th is going through his 1st and 7th house, which is himself and people or partners or other people. But can you see how Mars would be exactly triggering his moon at the moment? So this eclipse actually, he belongs to this eclipse by square. If he's got mutable. He was born under a mutable sign and a mutable eclipse, and this is another mutable eclipse. But it's difficult. It's a difficult energy for him at the moment. I'll show you on the 90-degree dial, because this wheel doesn't actually show you the important midpoints that this eclipse is triggering. When I put on the 90-degree dial, this eclipse is actually at the midpoint of his Saturn-Mars with Pluto across the dial. Now, Saturn-Mars is very destructive energy. Pluto, it's like very powerful, but also very destructive, because Mars is coming around to this point. So it's like fight for survival again. For him as well. So he'll be challenged on a physical level, and it's very dangerous. Also, you can see natally he's got a Saturn-Venus together, which can cause, at the moment, it's being triggered by the Saturn-Neptune across the dial. And Uranus is coming there. So there's instability. There might be some sort of separation from his wife or females here. And just some sort of scandal or dissolving of some sort of structure around him, because it's just an unstable position. So they both look like they're going to be heavily affected by these eclipses, and it's both look like their health may suffer because of this Saturn-Neptune is actually triggering personal points in their charts. So it'd be interesting to see how the next month plays out for both Donald and Hillary. Both of them, I believe, are under adverse transits. Okay, thank you for listening. If you want to follow me, I've got a blog at that link, my YouTube channel, my Twitter account, and my Facebook account. Okay, thank you.